This program right here does something interesting. It takes only 2 lines of information, which is a full name and a birth year of the user, and prints out some wonderful stuff. Let's run this code and let's see how it works. The output is profile generated. Full name is Alexandra Johnson, a username A Johnson in lowercase, display name Alexandra J, a handle at ajohnson98, initials AJ, and an email suggestion. Okay, so it just takes a full name and a birth year and converts that full name and birth year into username, display name, handle, initials, and email suggestion. So with Python, you are able to automatically generate email suggestions just from your full name and birth year. By the end of this video, you'd be able to work fluently with text in Python. So almost any text data in Python is stored as a string. So a string is basically text. S-T-R-I-N-G. Strings are basically text in Python. So any characters you wrap in quotes becomes a string. Now this may be single quotes or double quotes. Both actually work. But I prefer the single quotes. So let's say I want to store the name of a person. All I have to do is create a variable called name equals so let's say he's called Alexandra Johnson. So I create a name, a variable called name, and I store the name of the person in that variable. Let's say he lives in Los Angeles and I want to store his city. All I have to do is create another variable called city. And store the city in the variable called city. In the same way I could store sentences. So let's say a sentence is it's all good. So it is all good is a sentence. I can store that sentence in a variable called sentence. All I have to do is to bring my starting and ending quotes. I could also use the single quotes. I just have to be consistent. And you see the same blue color which signifies strings. So either I work with the double quotes or I work with the single quotes. Both of them represent strings in Python. Now, this is the first thing you have to understand about strings. Every single character in a string has a position number. So let's go with a name. In this name, every single character has a position. The A, the L, the E, X, and every other character, even with a space, has a position number. So let's say I just wanted to print the first letter of this name. All I have to do is start with my print command, which signifies to Python that I want to output some data. And I give the variable name. After I say the variable name, I introduce my square brackets, and in those square brackets, I put a number. Now this number refers to the position number of the item I want to print out of this name. So let's say I wanted to print the first letter. I have to know the position number of the first letter. So I put that position number in the square brackets and I would be able to print out this position number. Now, all positions in Python begin from 0. So counting actually begins from 0. That's one. So let's say I have this name. Sorry for this. So let's say I have name equals Alexandra Johnson. If I wanted to print the first letter of this name, then I have to know that since counting begins from 0 in Python, then the position number of the first letter of the name is 0. So all I have to put in this square brackets is 0. If I hit run, I have the first letter of the name printed out, A. So let's say I wanted the second letter of the name. All I have to do is 1. I'll hit run again, and this time, I'm sorry, I hit run again. This time I have an L. If I want the third letter, it's 2. And I hit run, and this time I have an E. So the same way for any single letter in the string. All I had to do is to put the position number in the square brackets and hit run. Now let's say I wanted the last element. Assuming this string has 2000 characters. If I wanted the last element, or let's say I was unsure of the total number of elements in the strings, how do I obtain this letter N? It's very simple. All I have to do is -1. -1 simply means count in reverse. So instead of beginning from A, I'm going to count from the last element in the string. So let's hit run, and we have an N printed to the user. So -1 just said count from the back. So it counts from N as -1. Let's say I wanted to output O. All I have to do is -2, and I'll be able to print out O to the user. Okay, so 0 gives me the first character, and -1 gives me the last character. So whenever I use a negative sign, Python counts backwards from the last character to wherever I want. So if I say -5, it's going to count starting from -1, which is the last character, and it's going to count in reverse. So let's try -5. So that's going to be N O S N H. So let's run this code, and we have H printed in the output. Okay, this is called indexing, and it works on every single string you would ever create. So in every string in Python, each letter in a string has a special or unique position number, and with this position number, we'll be able to output any single letter in the string. Now let's look at some operations we can do with strings. So the first operation I'm going to look at is the concatenation. So we do this by using the plus sign. So let's say I didn't have a full name, but I just had a first name. Let's cut this out. So let's say I had a first name and I also had a last name. Sorry. Okay. So I had a first name Alexandra and a last name Johnson. How do I join these two names together? I can join these two names together by using the plus sign. So let's say I print first name plus last name. So by using this plus sign, I'm able to join the first name to the last name. Now, you have to ensure that both are strings when using the plus sign. By saying strings, I mean both are enclosed in quotation marks. So I have Alexandra enclosed in quotation marks and Johnson also enclosed in quotation marks. Now, if I hit run, notice the output. I have Alexandra Johnson joined together, but with no space in between. Python doesn't add the space automatically, so you have to create a string which represents a space. So let's say I have first name. I now have to create a string which represents a space, and then I finish up with a plus. So first name, a space, and the last name. Now let's hit run and let's see what we have. Now we have Alexandra Johnson beautifully spaced. Notice I had to add a space manually between the first and last name. Python does not add the space for you. If you remove it, you get Alexandra Johnson joined together without any space. Always add a space explicitly. Okay, so a simple way of drawing a line in Python is just by using what we call the multiplication sign in mathematics. So let's say I have a variable called sign. So let's say sign is a string, and that string is this. If I wanted to print a line out of this, all I have to do is print sign multiplied by a certain number, let's say 20. Sorry. Okay, so I have sign to be the minus operator, and I'm printing the minus operator multiplied by 20. Let's see what we get. So we have this. Now, you may be wondering what I'm going to use these dash lines for. So I use these dash lines to make my outputs nicer. So let's say I want to create a student's ID. So I can use these dash lines to separate various items in the student ID to improve readability of my outputs. So it's simply a string multiplied by a number. So if I say 200, it means repeat this string 200 times. If I run this line of code, I'm going to have the minus operator being repeated 200 times. There is another concept called string slicing. So this is where strings get really interesting. You can cut out any piece of a string you want. This is called slicing, and the syntax is basically a square bracket and a colon. So let's say I wanted the first four letters of this name. So let me call it a name because it's the first and last name included. So let's say I wanted the first four letters of the name. All I have to do is print name with the square brackets. Now, what makes it different from indexing is that here I'm going to include a colon. Now, at the beginning of the colon, I'm going to specify which letter to begin with. So let's say I want the first five letters of this name. I'll begin from 0 and end at 5. I begin from 0 and end at 5. Now let's run this code and let's see what we get. We have Alexa, which is the first five letters of the name Alexandra Johnson. Now I explain something here. Let me explain in hash. So this is what's actually happening. I printed name 0 to 5. So it gives me the letter at index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 make up 5 characters. But I specified 0 to 5. So you may be wondering what happens to the sixth character. Now this is actually what's happening. If I write 0 is to 5 in square brackets, Python begins from 0 and ends at the letter 5 minus 1, which is 4. So index 4 actually represents the fifth letter. So if I say begin from the first to the fifth, Python just says, okay, so I'll begin from index 0 and end at index 4 because index 4 represents the fifth letter of the name. So let's say I wanted the first 10 letters of the name. I'm just going to do this and we are going to continue 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so if I hit run, I have Alexandra, which is the first 10 letters of the name Alexandra Johnson. Simple, right? Okay, now we move on to 7 essential functions that you have to know when dealing with strings in Python. So these are what we refer to the 7 essential methods. This is the most powerful part of the string journey. String methods. These are built-in tools that come with every single string in Python. You call them with a dot operator after the string. Now learn these 7 and you can handle almost any text problem. Now let's say I have a raw name and let me convert this to small case and take all these to Okay, so let's say I have a name Alexandra Johnson. Now, you can receive these texts in so many ways because real world data is messy. Hence, in Google Forms, someone can type their name as Alexandra or lowercase and the last name or uppercase. There are so many ways people can type their name. So as a programmer, you have to format this into a method that suits you best. Okay, now let's look at some essential ways by which we can work with a string like this. So let me begin by printing this string to the user so that you can see what we are actually working with. So it's called a raw name. So if I hit run, I'm going to have Alexandra Johnson. Okay, now one thing I can do is to strip. So let's say I had extra spaces in this name. So extra spaces simply means extra data consumption. So to save space on your hard disk drive, all you have to do is to clear these extra spaces because they look useless. Now, assuming you have a paragraph where every single line had about 45 extra spaces, that's extra spaces just wasted on your machine. So one way by which we can clear these extra spaces is by using a method called strip. So I'm just going to say print raw name dot strip. So once I hit run, I'm going to strip all extra white spaces out from this raw name. So if I hit run, I have Alexandra Johnson. So the first thing we can do is to clear these extra spaces in the name. How do I do this? I just have to say maybe name equals raw name dot strip. So this strip simply means clear every single unwanted space in the name. So it's going to clear spaces from the back. Let's say there were extra spaces at the front. Let's say something like this. So it's going to clear extra spaces at the front and the back. So we do this to save space on our memory. So let's say I print um, name. So I'm going to have, if I run this code, I'm going to have this printed, barely any difference. So let's print raw name and let's see what we get. Okay, so if I hit run, I have this. So initially, you can see these empty spaces before the beginning of the name, but after I run this code, raw name.strip, I no longer have these white spaces in the beginning of the name. Okay, so that's how to use a strip function in strings. That's how it works. Okay, another thing I could do is to capitalize every single letter in this name. So I could do name equals raw name dot upper. So upper simply means convert every single letter in the raw name to uppercase. So if I print the name, I now have something like this. Alexandra Johnson. Every single thing converted to uppercase. I'm sorry I forgot to strip white space. So I would have to do that before this. So raw name dot strip. And so this time my variable is name. Okay. Okay. So I have raw name equals Alexandra Johnson. So This line of code strips all empty white spaces from the beginning and from the end of the name. And line number 4 converts everything to uppercase. So I have something like this. Another thing I could do is, instead of converting everything to uppercase, I could just convert only the first letters of the name to uppercase. So instead of upper, I'm going to do title. Okay. So instead of upper, I'll do name.title. So if I do name.title, let's hit run. And this time I have just the first letters of the name converted to uppercase. All others strictly lowercase. So I think this is actually what we want instead of this. So we'll go with the title. Okay. Now another thing I could do is convert everything to lowercase. So if I want to convert everything to lowercase, then instead of title, I'm going to do lower, because for uppercase I have to do dot upper. So for lowercase I have to do dot lower. So if I hit run, and I now have Alexandra Johnson converted to lowercase. So strip removes the spaces from the front and the back, that's from both ends, not the spaces in the middle. So this space is not removed by the strip. Only the spaces at the front and the end of the code. So let's see this continued as something. This space won't be affected by the strip, but rather only spaces at the end and at the front. Okay. Now, another thing we can do is to replace words in a sentence. So let's say, let me clear my space. So let's say I have my sentence. I have my sentence to be, I love Java programming. So let's say I had the sentence, I love Java programming. Say I wanted to replace the word Java with Python. It's very simple. All I have to do is write my sentence. So sentence is just this. I want to replace it with, so sentence dot replace. So what do I want to replace? I want to replace the word Java with the word Python. So what this does is it searches the sentence for any occurrence of the word Java and replaces that with Python. So if I print my sentence after this, if I hit run, and I'm going to have I love Python programming instead of I love Java programming. So I could replace the word Java with Python. Another thing I could do is to split sentences into different parts. So let's say I wanted to split this to know the number of words in the sentence. I could decide to split the sentence based on spaces. One thing I can do is this, split. So sentence dot split. Note this is different from strip. So the strip operator removes white spaces from the beginning and the end of a sentence, but split divides the sentence into several blocks based on a given parameter. So let's say I wanted to split based on commas. I could just put a string comma. So it means split the sentence wherever you see a comma. So you may be wondering where I'm going to use this. So let's say I have a sentence which contains a list of items I want to buy in the market. So you will notice that every single item in the list will be separated by a comma. Hence, I can split by commas to find the total items I want to buy in the market. This time, I'm just splitting by a space. So you could either leave it blank or you just do this to signify I'm splitting by a space. So let's say I wanted my list to contain these words, or let's call it word list. So word list equals sentence.split. So if I print word list, let's see the content of word list. If I hit run, let me clear my terminal. If I hit run, I have a list of the words in this sentence, which is I love Java programming. So these are the words in this sentence because I split by spaces. So I becomes one word, love another word, Java the third, and the final word programming. So this is how we split a sentence into different parts. So now let's say I had an email address. Let's maintain the variable name sentence. So johnson@gmail.com. Okay. Now please pause this video and tell me how I'm going to divide the sentence johnson@email.com based on the @sign. So let's say I wanted to get the domain and the username. So you can pause this video and figure out how to do this. It's very simple. So this time I'm splitting based on the @sign. So all I have to do is to introduce my string and the @ and I hit run, and I'm going to have Johnson as a username and gmail.com as my domain. That's pretty simple. So I spoke about the replace earlier. So the replace swaps every occurrence of the first string with the second. And I now talked about split. So split breaks the string wherever it finds the separator and gives you a list of items. So this is how you pull a username from an email address. All you have to do is split on the @ and take the first part. So let's say I just wanted a username from this address. So my username is going to be sorry for this. So let me write it here. So my username is going to be my word list. But this time, I just want the first item in the word list because I printed a word list and I have Johnson as the first item and gmail.com as the second item. So can you guess how to output the first item in this word list? We count from 0. So counting from 0, I have word list, open square brackets, 0. So let's say I print the username. So if I print username, I'm going to get Johnson, just the first letter in the word list. So I'll go over what I just did. So I'll go over what I just did. I had a sentence. I had a sentence. So sentence is an email address, johnson@gmail.com. And I split this email address based on the @ to obtain a username and a domain. And after splitting, I had a list called the word list. And this was a list of words, which is the username and the domain. But I didn't want this list. I just wanted the username. So I had to say username equals word list, first item in the word list, and I printed it out and I have Johnson. Okay. So another thing we could do is F strings. So F strings are the modern way to put variables inside text. So earlier in this video, when I had my name, so first name to be Johnson, um, first name to be Johnson, and the last name, I think I mixed them up, no problem. So I had the first name to be Alexandra. So I had the first name to be Alexandra and the last name be Johnson. So initially, when I wanted to join these two names together, all I had to do was print the first name plus the last name with spaces in between, right? So the first name plus the last name with a space. So let's hit run and let's see what we have from this. So we have Alexandra Johnson. Now, there is another way to do this using F strings. So in F strings, I begin my string with an F. So this time round, it's not just double quotes, but then F before the double quotes. So what do I do? Just follow what I'm doing. So if I have my first name in curly braces and a space and my last name also in curly braces. So this simply means create a string with a placeholder first name, a space, and a placeholder of last name. Now you can immediately recognize that first name is a variable which houses the name Alexandra, and last name is a variable which houses the name Johnson. So if I run this block of code, I'm going to have a first name, a space, and a last name. So let's hit run and let's see what we have. So we printed the same thing, a first name, space, and a last name. So this is also a way by which we can print out strings. So F strings. Okay. So now I think you have enough information to build the code we began with. So we were building a username generator, an email suggester, and I think something else. So let's begin with a name. So this time, I'll start with the name John Doe. So let's say his birth year is 2006. So this time I have somebody called John Doe. So I have someone called John Doe with a birth year of 2006. So let's say I wanted to generate a unique username, a unique email address, the initials of this name, a display name, and probably, um, well, I think that would be okay. So let's say I wanted to generate these things I just mentioned, a username, a display name, a handle, initial, and email suggester. How do I do this? So let's call it the profile. So I'm just going to be working with print functions. So print profile, a string. So let me space this. So print profile. Now I'll probably want to start by applying the separators. So let's say I wanted to start with a line. So I'm just going to do this. Let's say multiply by 50. And I could actually repeat this, also multiply by 50. Okay, so let's run this and let's see what we have at this point. So we have these two dividers with profile. Um, yeah, so let's call it user profile. So I have the two dividers with user profile. Now, under these two dividers. I'm now going to put in data for the user profile. Okay, so what do we want? We want a username, but then let's begin with a full name. So let's say print f strings. I've already taught you f strings, so I'm going to be using them a lot. Now, full name is a string. Print full name. Now, what do I want as the full name? So I begin with a placeholder. In that placeholder, I'm going to put what? A variable called name. So the variable called name is John Doe. So if I'm to run this, I'm going to have full name John Doe. Let's run this and let's see our outputs. So we have full name John Doe. Now let's see, we wanted to create a username. Let's go back to our string. How do we create a username, a very unique username for this person? Okay, one thing we could do is probably take the first letter of his name, combine that with the last word, that's the last name, and probably add the last two digits of his birth year. So that will be able to create a very unique username. So how do we do this? Well, we could say name, we want just the first letter, so 0, and we combine that with the last name. Now there are 3 letters in the last name, so um here we want to do some string slicing. So let's find out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 means starts from the D. Sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 means starts from the D and colon. So if I say colon without giving a place to end, it simply means starts from the D and give me any other thing I have in that string. So I begin from the D to the end of the string. So now I have the first letter in the name plus the last name. Let's see, plus the first, that's the last 2 digits in the birth year. So we could see the last 2 digits are 06. So 06. So let's hit so now let's print out this username and let's see what we get. Okay, so if I hit run, this is what I have, jdo06. So let's say usernames are usually in lowercase. So I could equally convert this username to lowercase. I would say lower. Um, so dot lower. If I hit run, I'm going to have jdo06. Okay. In the same way, if I wanted his initials and f strings, and okay, I actually don't have initials at the point at this moment. So I have to create initials. So initials would be the first letter of this name and the last, sorry, and the first letter of the last name. So that's going to be name square brackets 0, which is the first letter of the name, plus letter number 5, which is the first letter of the last name. So if I hit run, I'm going to have JD as his initials. Now, another thing we could do is a handle and an email suggestion. So for the email suggestion, let's say email suggests equals. So what are the components of an email? We have a username, and an at sign. So the at sign is just going to be double plus. So the at sign is just going to be this. And what? So let's say his domain will be Gmail. So I'm just going to give the domain gmail.com. So I'm going to have his username at gmail.com. So I think any other thing is just combination of what we've done in this lesson. So let's print that out. So we call it email. Then we give a placeholder, which is our curly braces, and email suggest. So if I now hit run, I'm going to have a full name John Doe, a username JDO6, and an initials JD, and an email suggestion JDO06 at gmail.com. So these are many more things you can do with strings. So it's just I'll just advise you to practice more and solve similar assignments, and I think you'll be fine.